2024 Panama City Beach Marathon recap. Let's go. Thanks for joining me on this recap video of my most recent marathon, the Panama City Beach Marathon. Proud to say that it went better than I expected. Ended up PRing this marathon. Spoiler alert, but I guess it'll be in the title too, so it doesn't really matter. Ended up taking home an unintentional win. Did not expect it, was not the goal, but ended up getting the win and just totally blew me away. The whole day, everything leading up to it. Got some wild stories I want to go into. So let's just dive right on in. I had initially planned on running the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon, which takes place in like the early part of November. And I wanted that to be my fall marathon, particularly because it was a flat course. It takes place in the fall, so like I knew the temps were going to be really great. So I had my eyes set on that marathon from the get-go after running my comeback marathon back in April. I wanted to carry the fitness over from that marathon through the summer into a fall marathon and really see if I could dial in some of the miscues that took place from the Nashville marathon. I don't want to get into all of the details of like what's brought me to this point in my running journey in this video. So all of those nitty-gritty details, go check out my other video that's on my channel. It gives you the full story of kind of where I've come from in my running journey to getting back into long distance running again, and me running my very first marathon in 17 years back in April of this year in 2024. I had learned a lot, from that marathon. So I felt more mature as a runner and just wanted to really focus in on some of the weak points that were exposed from that race, and wanted to really see, was I able to hit the goal that I had set at the beginning of this year of running a 2:45 marathon. So had my eyes set on Indianapolis, but ended up having a friend that was going to get married on that exact same day. So I ended up having to change plans because I was not going to miss this wedding. We ended up discovering that Panama City Beach had a marathon that was taking place in December. And my wife, I believe, was the one that sent me the details on it. She's like, hey, you could go run this marathon and we could also take a family vacation while we're down there too. So I was like, hey, that sounds like a phenomenal idea. We should do that. So I then pivoted and decided, hey, I'm going to run the PCB marathon. And it was going to actually take place a month later than Indianapolis. And it was going to be on December 7th. So it was going to give me even more time, to really focus in on training. So before we go too much further, I should say this too, because this is a very important part of something new that's taken place in my life this year. Since the last video and since the last marathon, we ended up having our fourth child. We finally got our baby girl. And so I have been in just that, land of having a newborn and adjusting, and our family is growing. And so that has been a new dynamic, this whole build that I've had to, take punches with in the midst of having a really intense goal of running a marathon and wanting to hit a specific time in the marathon. So we are all doing well. We're so happy that our baby girl is finally here. All of that to say, that has been an interesting dynamic, this build that was different from the previous build. Made the decision, hey, we're going to do PCB and let's go for it. Consistently started training in the summertime because I wanted to get some hot miles in during the peak temps in the Nashville summer, just for the benefits that it always brings to runners that can stay consistent and get mileage in summer. It works wonders for the body and for the mind too. And it allowed me to, because the race was a month later than Indianapolis, I could do an 18-week build. That, coupled with the dynamic of having a newborn and needing to be flexible, more time the better is what I thought. So stayed focused. Training went really well, this build actually. I really focused this build on implementing more tempo and more steady runs. And I feel like it really propelled me to a new level of fitness that I did not expect. I felt really strong, had a lot of indicators that actually pointed me to thinking and believing that my fitness had surpassed 245. 3 months in to the build, ended up realizing that I could, if things went right, I think that I could run 238, and had really great workouts, felt really mentally strong, and 245 just felt like I know that I can do that. Had a couple of things that kind of popped up in the midst of training, had stressful moments in life, that just take place. I think every runner experiences that obviously at some point. And so you just have to be flexible. Had a couple of injuries that I was able to keep at bay, but that ultimately did affect some of my training workouts. I missed a handful of running days, but I don't think that it had a massive impact on my ability to run. You put so much weight and leave such little margin for error on these marathon builds because it all has to be perfect for race day, and I get why. I understand why that is a thing, but it's also look at what we get to do. We have the ability to run and to be healthy and to be able to set a hard goal that's ambitious, that pushes you and that challenges you, but that rewards you at the same time. That is the prize. That's the gold, and I didn't want what happened on race day to be the definition of my identity as a runner. I am really big on training being that, and who you become in training is more profound and more valuable than what a number indicates on a race day, because it's harder work. It requires more of you than just one singular event or one singular day. Now, had some crazy things happen leading up to the marathon. Just wild. I mean, just completely nuts. This was the Panama City Beach Marathon is a smaller marathon, and it's fairly new. I mean, I think it's only been running since 2014 or 2015, and there's only about 400 to 450 marathoners. They have also a half marathon and a 5K that run simultaneously. They do staggered start times, but it's a smaller race. So coming from the Nashville Marathon that I did in April, which had about 2,900 runners in it, this was going to be a smaller experience, but I liked that. I now, after running it, I think I enjoyed running the smaller marathon better than any of the larger half marathons and the 2 marathons that I had done prior. I think I liked that experience better. It just made it more about the run. And that's not to say that I won't do any of the bigger ones out there, but I really was refreshed by it. It was so sweet. So anyways, when I shifted my focus to PCB, because it's a smaller marathon, I had never run into the fact that registration would fill up. One day I was online and I saw that on their Instagram that they had filled up, ran out of marathon bibs. And y'all, I had done the dumbest thing and did not register yet. I don't know why. I just thought I had time, and it was a terrible mistake. Ultimately, I started freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been training for this marathon and now I don't have a bib, and what am I going to do? So prayed about it. I felt a ton of peace and felt like God was saying, just be calm, and it's going to be okay. You're going to run this race, but just don't be anxious about it. I'll get you there. It's not going to be in vain, that you've been training for all this. So I took that to heart, ended up setting a ton of reminders on my phone and got in contact with the race director and was pursuing every avenue I could to get a bib. About 2 weeks of that went on. And y'all, I was like the squeaky wheel for sure. I mean, I was emailing this race director and calling every week and trying to find anything that I could do. And they ended up pointing me to their Facebook page and said, hey, I think I saw a couple people saying that they were selling their bibs. You might check that out. So found 2 people that were offering to sell bibs, contacted them both. There were several comments on it. I was a few days late to catching it. And so I was like, I don't think that there's anything that's going to come from this because I'm late to the game, but I'll shoot my shot. So messaged both of them. I hear back from one of them and they're like, hey, I'll sell you the bib, no problem. So they were like, hey, just send me half of the registration fee. I'll then transfer the bib to you, and then you can send me the other half. I'm like, cool, that sounds great. Sent them the first half. And then they totally ghosted me. So I got scammed. Then on top of all of that, I think the other auxiliary pressure was that we were getting so close to the race that we had to start making preparations for travel and for where we were going to stay. So we ended up booking our Airbnb and booking our flights and all of that. I had invited several of my family to come down and support. And so we had family coming in as well. And we were all going to stay at this big Airbnb. And we had it all booked and all purchased. And I didn't have a bib. So it was pretty wild. I just kept praying about it. I just felt like, hey, it's going to work out. Just don't let it get under your skin. just keep focused. Like, you're gonna run this marathon. And I took that to heart, and I just had faith in it, and was just like, it's gonna happen. You know, it's not gonna be in vain. So then when I got scammed, it was just like, it's like, you know, salt on the wound. And just tried to push it out of my mind and be like, I'm going to run this race. This is just going to turn into a crazy story. So then shortly thereafter, the other person that was selling their bib got in contact with me, and I had offered them more money than the registration fee. And they were like, I'm not going to take more money, but I do owe it to the people who contacted me before you. Let me check with them and see if they want to run the race, and I'll get back to you. So thankfully, about 20 minutes later, I got the message from them that they had checked with the other people and they were not able to attend the race. And so that if I wanted the bib, it was mine. So sent them the money. I was praying. I was like, please don't scam me. Please be real. And ended up being real. And John, if you ever see this video, you are the man. And I appreciate you more than you know. Answered prayer, man. Awesome. Got the bib finally. And y'all, I mean, just crazy. You know, I mean, all of the journey getting into this marathon and then getting scammed, not having a bib, all that fun stuff. And then to actually finally get the release, the sigh of relief of like, okay, I'm gonna actually run this marathon and it's gonna happen. And it was a really good relief. And I wanted to really pour into this marathon, tightening up some of the weak spots that were exposed from the last marathon. I didn't in the days leading up to the last marathon, I didn't feel like I rested enough. I felt like I was on my feet a lot. I don't feel like I carb loaded enough. So I wanted this to be different. And I was able to achieve that all thanks to my wife. I mean, she just literally shouldered all of the family's needs for those 2 days. Once we got to our place that we were staying, she took care of the kids and just truly let me just get into like tunnel vision. It all came together. I mean, I got to carb load the way that I wanted to. I ended up, you know, those 2 days, that Thursday and Friday, I was able to get about 600 to 700 grams of carbs both days. I ate a crap ton of white rice and spaghetti and bagels and apple juice, orange juice, all of it. You know, just all of the foods that I had dialed in through the months prior that I knew sat well with my stomach. I just got to really load the way that I wanted to. It was really great. Several naps, Epsom salt baths are so key, y'all. I mean, just so great. Got to watch the movies I wanted to watch. I mean, just really mentally, this was my best prep leading up to the 2 days prior to the marathon. And I felt locked in. My family, the rest of my family, majority of my family was able to come down. So we ended up having my mom and my dad and a few of my siblings and their kids come down and their spouses. I mean, it was a huge party. I mean, we are all really close family, but having them there to support was so sweet. I mean, so great. Anyways, now getting into like race morning. So woke up at about 4 o'clock. The race started at 7. I had really dialed in a fueling strategy for this race that I wanted to execute on. I felt like I was really lacking in execution from my April marathon, and I wanted to shore that up this marathon. And part of that was not having a great strategy for April's marathon. So I really honed in over the last several months on like researching a good strategy, testing, rehearsing what it would feel like on long runs every Saturday, all those things, and really found a good method and something that I wanted to try out. I ended up switching the gels that I was using and ended up getting into a system that sat better with my stomach. So I ended up taking that right when I got up at 4 a.m. On race morning, and ended up having like a little oat bar as well. That has worked really well for me this whole build. I've actually been really enjoying it. Took those two and then ended up taking a bicarb system that you have to dial it in pretty specific to like when your start time is for your marathon, and also time it with enough distance from when you eat your pre-race meal. Took my meal and then immediately just went into my normal routine. I've got a little foot roller with like little bumps on it that help kind of wake my feet up. So I was rolling my feet out, did some light activation, stretching, got to have a time of prayer and read some verses in the Bible that had really spoke to me this build. Running for me is a very, very big connection spiritually in my relationship with God, and he has used it in so many profound ways. More than I could even mention, just a quick video here. The key to my success has a lot to do with my faith. Took time for that. Everything that I wanted to do pre-race, I got to do. Incredible experience. My wife, she designs t-shirts and stuff, and she's super creative. In the previous marathon, I had a custom singlet that we ended up designing together, and she ended up pressing for me. And so this build, I wanted to do the same thing. This build, I really focused in on a couple phrases that really started to mean so much to me. And those phrases I ended up getting to put on my shirt. And that's a tradition that I'm going to continue to do for the however many marathons that I'm able to run from here on out. I also had on my singlet a couple of metrics from my training that are just serving as reminders that who I became in my training, in my build, is greater than who I am defined by from this singular race today. On the front of my singlet, it said, I can, I will, I am. And that phrase, even just saying it right now, I mean, it's kind of, it just does something to me. To me, that phrase signifies the stages of belief. I can is the first step of seeing something you want to do and saying, I can do that. And then the next step beyond I can is I will do that, committing to it, saying, not only I can do that, I'm capable of doing that, but I am going to do that. And then the final step of that is I am doing that. I would be going through some tough miles, and that phrase would just kick around, and it got me through so many hard places, mentally and physically. I would just, if there was a workout I was trying to go do and I didn't feel up to it, I would just tell myself, I can, I will, and I am. I can, I will, and I am. And I would just, it was on repeat. And so that meant, that meant a lot to me, that phrase. The way we had designed it was we designed it to where it says, I can, I will, I am, but then it's flipped on the other side so that I could look down and I could read it for myself. So it's like one side for the person, one side for me. And in the middle is the I that divided both of them. It makes sense if you see it on the singlet, but unintentionally, it kind of looks actually like a strip of road for the marathon. So it's just pretty fascinating how that all worked out in the design of it all, and it's just super special. On the back of the singlet said, "His joy is my strength." And that comes from Nehemiah 8:10. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And there was a specific verse in Hebrews that really came to mean a great deal to me in Hebrews 12, where it's talking about the suffering of Jesus and how it says that for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. So I just wanted to keep that into perspective in the forefront of my mind, that his joy is my strength, that no matter what I face today during this marathon, it's going to have some really hard moments, but nothing that I face today is going to be harder than what Jesus did for me on the cross. And ultimately, he was able to endure that hardship, that hardest thing that any other person's ever experienced, for the joy that was set before him. And so I want to have that joy set before me to endure this hard thing for me. And then on top and bottom, on the top of that, I can, I will, I am, I had 107 is greater than 1. 107 is the amount of days that I had in my training build, 107 days. And that was just to signify and just to remind myself that the 107 days of training that I had put into this build were greater than the one day today that I was racing, and that I should be proud of that most. And then underneath it all was my mileage count for the build. It said 1204 is greater than 26.2. Again, just a reminder that the 1,204 miles of training that I had put in through the build is greater than the 26.2 that I'm going to run today. It's greater because it shaped me into who I am today, not this marathon. To cap it all off, at the very, very top of the singlet in the back, kind of in the shoulder blade area, has been this phrase that has just stuck with me from previous build, and it says, "Be you." And it stands for be uncommon. So if the common thing is to slow down because you're feeling nauseous, or slow down because you're hitting a hill, or to not want to go do a workout or whatever, be uncommon. Be uncommon and go do the thing. And I carried that with me on this singlet. So phenomenal singlet. We get out and it's a little bit cold, but I had brought layers and I had planned to shed them at start of race. I did not intend to run with gloves, but the morning of, when I got out there, it was pretty cold. So I was like, well, I'll just run with the gloves for as long as I can, and then I'll just shed them. So I did a quick warm up, some strides pre-race, just to get the body warm. Did my normal routine. I mean, hey, it's just another long run. We're going to get in, we're going to do what we need to do, and we're going to go home. We're going to celebrate the victory of what this means. Get to the start line. and then it was go time. So the goal for the marathon was 2:45. The pacing strategy that I had for the race was the first 3 miles really focusing in on just letting the race come to me, kind of letting it develop a little bit. But then miles 4 through 20 were going to be just punching in, and then the last 10K I wanted to negative split and I wanted to push hard. That was the strategy. Pace breakdown wise, what that would look like ideally for me was I was hoping to go in and do the first 3 miles in about 6:05, 6:10 pace. And then from miles 4 to 20, dial it into 5:55 to 6 minute. And then the last 10K, I was going to try to open it up and get down into either 5:50 or 5:45. I had a really strong 15-mile marathon pace long run workout that went really, really well a few weeks prior to the race and indicated to me that I was capable of doing this. The course layout is a 6.5 mile loop. For the full marathon, you would run from the start line out 6.5 miles, go back to the start line, and then back out another 6.5, and then back to the start line. And that would be the full marathon. Then they had staggered in that about 30-minute increments, the half marathon starters and then or racers, and then the 5K racers. The first lap out, I didn't start my watch right at the start of the race, so I didn't have it ready, I should say. So I'm like running as the gun goes off, and I'm like, come on, hit start, go, go, go. And about, like halfway through the first strip, I finally got it to queue up and go. And then we turned left onto the main road that was going to be the 6.5 miles out. I ended up taking the lead and just wanted to hone in on the first 3 miles. So ended up running 6:14, 6:14, and then 6:05 for the first 3. Was feeling good, but ran into a little bit of a issue on mile 4 because I was out in front, and because I don't know, I didn't drive the course beforehand, so I was just looking at PDFs and any footage that I had available online. On mile 4, and we actually got footage of this. I told my family I didn't want to see them for the first 3 miles. I just wanted to get in pace, and I would be okay with seeing them at mile 4 and then disperse throughout the race. So they were waiting for me at mile 4. Just coincidentally, right at mile 4, the police barricade that was blocking off the intersection, the way that he was positioned indicated to me that I was supposed to turn right down this road. And I turned, and it turned right in front of my family. So they're super excited to see me, and they're like, oh my gosh, look, here's Jhason, he's in first place. And I'm super excited to see them. But then I turned and I'm like, why would they, why are they standing up there? Why aren't they down here so that I can actually see them? It's so odd that they're hanging out up there. So I made a weird detour, and after my right turn, the police officer didn't say anything to me hey, turn around, you're going the wrong way. And I ended up kind of working my way. I did basically a really big U and ended up back on the course. And it added, it probably added about a minute onto the time. Pretty frustrating and pretty funny at the same time. Didn't lose the lead somehow in the midst of all that, and just kept powering through. After I got through that whole debacle, I then started to really settle into pace. I started hitting, just cranking off 6:05, 6:03, for a good chunk of miles. And I did notice, though, that it was feeling a little bit harder than usual. So I didn't want to just push to get down to 5:55 like I was hoping to be able to feel good to do. I just wanted to be patient because it's a long race. And that was a good move. I'm glad I trusted my instincts on that. So I just kind of settled in at that 6:05, 6:03-ish pace, and just kind of let it all come to me for those miles. Fueling strategy. I had planned, because it's a 6.5 mile course, to take 1 gel every 3 miles. And so that would mean I would take 2 gels every lap. And it was 4 laps. So it was going to be about 7 or 8 gels if I could stomach it. And I had a drink mix, a carb drink mix in 1 bottle. It was about 11 ounces of that. And then I had regular water in another 11 ounce bottle. I ran with a flip belt, so I was able to have one of the bottles on me. And then I had my brother and my dad with the regular water bottle, and I was going to call on that as I needed it. So the first lap, took both my gels. I was going to alternate between caffeinated and regular every other gel until I hit mile 18, and then just strictly go to regular gels. So I hit my first 2 gels and feeling okay. But then once I finished the first lap and I started doubling back, I don't remember seeing every mile marked on the way back. So that would be on laps 2 and 4. I had to kind of it was hard to see which mile marker I was at. Now I know I had my watch, but mentally it's easy to pick it apart now. But like when you're in the race and you're so focused, you're kind of just acting on the fly. And I think a lot of this is just due to my inexperience, this only being my third marathon ever. And, you know, second one in 17 years, it just exposed a little bit of weakness in me. So on the lap back, on that second lap, I missed my fueling for the intervals that I had set. So I ended up powering through and I kind of got lost a little bit in where I was at. And before I knew it, I was at the halfway mark. I hadn't taken my fourth gel yet, or I hadn't taken my third gel yet, excuse me. Past the halfway point, loop back around for my third lap, which mentally I was trying to prep myself to be the hardest lap, because I knew that that's where I really broke down. Those mileages are when I broke down in the April marathon. So I was really focused hard on this lap 3. Threw in my third gel somewhere around mile 15 or 16. Again, I don't know why I did that. Like, I mean, I'm analyzing that now, and it's just like, man, that's just clearly just room for improvement. I should have had more in me, and I should have stayed more diligent with that. So I didn't execute well enough on that.
All right, little vlog moment. Brother Jude here and Dad in the car.
Yeah, he's killing it.
He is crushing it. He's probably he's like a mile ahead of them. Probably.
Mile ahead in first place, man. He's about a mile ahead of everybody else.
We were so tempted to say something to you, Jay, be like, "You're crushing it, keep going." But we decided not to say anything, so he's crushing it right now.
He is.
At that point, I was still in first, but it started getting harder to hold pace right around mile 14. So I did start to slow down a bit. I think I got down into like the 6:10s and 6:12s and stuff like that. And I started noticing my body was just struggling a little bit. My heart rate felt great, but I felt like the effort was due to my fueling, not heart rate. I averaged, about in the low 160s for the whole race. I had more to give because, I was hoping to hold steady in the mid 160s, maybe even get into the 170s just for effort level. But I kept trying to push through it all, but I was really conscious of wanting to let the race come to me, especially during the meat of those miles through, miles 4 through 20. I kept telling myself it's a 20-mile long run with a 10K race at the end. That's what I had trained for mentally, and physically I wanted to be able to hit that. The fueling execution really came back to bite me in the back half, and you can kind of see that in my splits that I start to tail off, from like mile 14 onward. It just starts getting a little bit sporadic. So definitely fueling is the next thing that needs to get tightened up for the next marathon. Round the corner for the final lap, and I was really pleased with how I was feeling because I was so scared from the April marathon when I really battled that nausea heavy from mile 14 to the end of the race, that I was really watching how my body felt for mile 14 through 20, and just wanted to see how I felt. I told my parents, told my family that I didn't want to see them anymore throughout the race from mile 20 or 21 until the finish line. I wanted those last 5 to 6 miles to just be me focusing in on the goal and executing. To me, those miles are sacred because it's where you really get to see who you really are. It cuts through all the fluff, cuts through all the mental gymnastics, cuts through all of it. I mean, it shows you who you are. And I wanted to slay that dragon, so to speak. I wanted to battle those out alone.
He goes, yeah, he kind of goated this. So that guy in the lawn chair just past you, Jay, he said he's goating this. And then the guy right next to him goes, yeah, he's probably done this a time or two.
From that point, I really started to notice that the nausea began to really overtake me, and had not consumed any more gels from mile 16 onward. Big mistake. My body was exclusively craving water. No more drink mix, no more carb mix. I was just only wanting water. And unfortunately, I made the terrible decision of tossing my regular water bottle at mile 21 and didn't have anything. It's so easy, again, to like pick this apart when you're not running. But at the time, it was just finish. I can crank out 5 miles, just do it. And so I just went in and just got focused and hammered out miles. The nausea kept getting worse. My pace kept slowing. It went from 6:13 in mile 22 to 6:24, and then 6:28, and then 6:37, and then 6:42. So I completely fell apart towards the end. I was really focused on just finishing. I'm weaving in and out of people, 5K finishers, half marathon finishers, and I was just running my own race. I was not focused on like, was I in first place? What place was I in? I wasn't worried about that like truly at all. It was just about like, I want to be proud of what I'm doing today. And I couldn't tell if anyone had finished or any full marathoners had passed me. I get to the final strip. I see the final turn into the finish line. I see my family off in the distance, and I see the time clock, and it says 2:44 with some seconds behind it. And immediately I knew I just ran a 2:45 marathon. Did it. I hit my goal and crossed the line, 2:45:08, and I was just completely undone. I didn't have any cramping other than the standard aches and pains from running a marathon, what it will do to you. But I felt very physically intact, felt very mentally spent, and extremely nauseous, but very proud. And they put the medal on me. I start kind of walking out, trying to stay loose a little bit, trying to keep the nausea down, trying to process what all had happened. I hadn't even processed yet like what place I had come in. And then it wasn't until a few moments later that my dad or my mom, somebody said, congratulations, you won. And I was like, I won?
Who's the king?
Did I win?
You won!
You won! You won! You won! You won!
I just immediately started crying. You can't tell in the video because I had my sunglasses on, but I mean, it did me in. I couldn't believe it. I am a dad of 4 that had taken a 17-year break from running any races, and just got back into running, wanting to have something that I could have in my life that could push me and hold me accountable and make me stronger. And I had set out not even a full year ago wanting to run a marathon again. And here I am at the end of 2024, and I ran a 2:45 marathon. Just incredible experience. Absolutely nuts. I got an awesome trophy.
2 hours, 45 minutes, and 8 seconds. Jhason Smith.
For coming in first place. It truly just meant everything to me that I had my whole family there to be present for witnessing that moment. It just meant so much to me. So 2:45:06 was the official chip time. Now, I don't think it's wrong to say that I ran it faster because of my detour on mile 4. 2:44, 2:43, what could it have been? But I will say this, after feeling what that effort felt like and seeing the pitfalls in my fueling execution, I now feel a whole other level of confidence to be able to run in the 2:30s. I think that 2:38 is definitely an attainable goal, and I think even beyond 2:38 is attainable if I put in the work for it. So a little recap here of my marathon journey over the years. 2006 Rocket City Marathon, 3 hours, 51 minutes, 32 seconds. 2024 Nashville Rock and Roll Marathon, 3:03:10. And the 2024 Panama City Beach Marathon, 2:45:06, and first place. and super excited to see what happens as a result from this race, because definitely will get me into Boston 2026. Very excited about that. So it's time for me to go to work. Real quick before I go, I do have a free PDF that is mentioned in my last video of some tips and some things that I learned from my last marathon that helped me run the fastest that I ever had. It is free. It's something that I just wanted to put together that's a gift to you guys, people who want to know how I was able to shave so much time off of my marathon. It's all in there. So go click the link and it'll bring you to the PDF. I'm planning on putting together some more things like that, specifically around marathon training. Might even try to get into some coaching. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. It's going to be really fun to see what this next year brings. Thanks for joining me today. Keep showing up. Be relentless in your pursuit of your goal. Be uncommon and be you. We'll see you on the next one.